It started as a simple favor. My brother, Noah, had just gone through a tough breakup and needed a place to stay. I had just moved into my own apartment and had extra space, so I offered him a room. He seemed grateful at first, and everything felt fine. We agreed on a few simple house rules. Keep the noise down, clean up after himself, and pay a small portion of the rent every month. I never thought it would be an issue. But things started to change when Noah's new girlfriend, Emily, started coming over more and more. At first, it was just the occasional dinner, but soon she was practically living there too. I didn't mind at first. Noah needed support, and I didn't want to be the overbearing sibling. But then, one evening, I came home from work to find the front door locked. It was strange because Noah had a key, and I was sure I hadn't locked it. I rang the bell, but no one answered. After a few minutes, the door opened, but it wasn't Noah. It was Emily. "Hey, I changed the locks," she said casually, as if that was perfectly normal. "I'll make sure you get a new key soon." I stood there, stunned. "You changed the locks?" She nodded, not even fazed by my confusion. "Yeah, I think it's a good idea. You were hardly ever here, and Noah's staying with me more often. It just makes sense." I didn't know what to say. This wasn't just her making herself at home. It was her taking control of the place I'd worked hard for. "Where's Noah?" I asked, still processing everything. "He's out with friends. But you should really talk to him about this," Emily replied, before shutting the door behind her. I stood there for a moment, dumbfounded. What was happening to my apartment? This wasn't just a matter of her being there a lot. She was taking over. And Noah was letting her. The next day, Noah came home late, as usual. I was sitting in the living room, waiting for him. When he walked through the door, I didn't waste any time. "Noah, we need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. He looked at me, confused. "About what?" "About the locks," I said, trying to keep my cool. Why did Emily change them without asking me first? Noah hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. I told her it was fine. She just wanted to feel more secure, you know? She doesn't really feel at home here yet, and it's been bothering her. I was taken aback. "She doesn't feel at home here? This is my apartment, Noah. You're here temporarily. You can't just let her make decisions like that." He looked down, avoiding eye contact. "I'm sorry, I didn't think it would bother you. I'll talk to her." But before I could respond, Emily walked in, holding a clipboard. "Hi. I made a little list of things I think we should adjust around the apartment," she said brightly, as if she were a tenant and not just a visitor. "It'll make everything run more smoothly. I think you'll agree." I glanced at Noah, who seemed too nervous to say anything. I looked back at Emily, who handed me the clipboard. The list was a nightmare. It wasn't just about cleaning chores, it was a complete overhaul of my space. From rearranging the furniture to changing the rules about visitors, her list included things like no loud music after 9 p.m., limit kitchen use to 30-minute intervals, no guests without approval, no shoes in the apartment, even if they're clean, separate fridge space for Emily's food, no more late-night work, it disrupts the living environment. I stared at the list, then back at Emily, who smiled sweetly. "What is this?" I asked, trying to hold back my frustration. "I just think it'll make the place feel more like our home," she said, as though it was the most reasonable request. I turned to Noah, who still hadn't said a word. "Is this your idea too?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. Noah shifted uncomfortably. "I mean, it's a good list, right? It'll help things run better." At that moment, I realized this wasn't just about Emily. Noah had let her take over, and he didn't even see the problem. They were treating my apartment like it was their own. I felt my blood boil. How had I let this happen? How had I allowed my own brother to push me aside in my own home? But I wasn't going to let them take control anymore. Not without a fight. The next few days were filled with tension. Every time I walked into the apartment, Emily seemed to be in the middle of one adjustment or another. The furniture was rearranged again, the kitchen was divided into sections, and she was constantly reminding Noah about the rules. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to set boundaries, and I had to do it now before things got out of hand. I called Noah over one evening, when Emily wasn't home. This was the moment I'd been dreading, confronting my own brother about his behavior. "Noah, we need to have a serious conversation," I started, trying to keep my tone even. "This whole situation is getting out of hand." He looked at me, a little defensive. "What do you mean? I thought everything was fine." "Everything is not fine," I snapped. "Emily has no right to change the locks or make lists about how things should run in my apartment. You're living here temporarily, not permanently. I'm the one who makes the rules." Noah shifted uncomfortably, but he didn't seem to grasp the weight of the situation. "I get it, but she's just trying to help. You don't know how stressed she's been. She's trying to make things easier for all of us." I shook my head. "You don't get it, Noah. She's not trying to help. She's taking over. And you're letting her." He opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "Look, I get that she's your girlfriend, but that doesn't mean she gets to run the show here. You agreed to stay with me because you needed a place to live. But that doesn't give her the right to make decisions for us both. If she wants to live here, she can get her own place." Noah looked hurt, but I could see the hesitation in his eyes. He knew I was right, but he didn't want to upset Emily. "You can't just kick her out," he said quietly. "She doesn't have anywhere else to go." I sighed, realizing that this wasn't going to be easy. "I'm not kicking her out, Noah. But things need to change. I need to feel comfortable in my own home again. I'm asking you to talk to her. If you're serious about living here, you need to set some boundaries." He stayed quiet for a moment, clearly weighing the situation. Finally, he nodded, albeit reluctantly. "I'll talk to her," he said, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. "But you know she's not going to like it." I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I had to draw the line somewhere. I wasn't going to let Emily, or anyone else, dictate the terms of my life. The following days were tense. Noah told me he would talk to Emily, but I had yet to see any change. I walked into the apartment one evening to find Noah and Emily in the living room, whispering to each other. The moment they saw me, the conversation stopped. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Whatever they were discussing wasn't good news. I didn't wait for them to speak first. "Noah, we need to talk about this once and for all," I said, my voice firm but controlled. "I told you that this wasn't working. Why is Emily still acting like she runs the place?" Noah looked uncomfortable, shifting his gaze to Emily, who stood there with her arms crossed. "Look, I tried talking to her, but she's just upset," he said, clearly struggling to find the right words. "Upset?" I repeated, incredulous. "Upset because she doesn't get to make the rules in my home?" Emily spoke up, her voice sharp. "It's not about making rules, it's about respect. This apartment isn't just yours anymore. We live here too, and I think I've been more than reasonable with my suggestions. You're the one being difficult." I blinked in surprise. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're the one who changed the locks and made a list of demands like you're the owner of the place. You're the one who decided I wasn't allowed to have a say in my own apartment." Emily scoffed, rolling her eyes. "I'm just trying to make this a nice environment for everyone. Noah and I have plans for the future, and we can't live in chaos." "Chaos?" I felt a surge of anger rising. "This place was fine before you decided to take over. And don't talk to me about the future. This is about now. You don't get to control everything just because you're dating my brother." Noah stepped between us, his face flushed with frustration. "Enough," he shouted. "I'm tired of both of you fighting. You're family, and you should be able to figure this out." I looked at him, stunned. "You're still not getting it, Noah. You're choosing her over me again. She's changed the rules, taken over my space, and you're standing there defending her actions. Do you even care how I feel?" He looked at me, his expression filled with guilt. "I do care. But Emily, she's different. She's the first person who's made me feel like I belong in a long time. I don't want to lose that." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Noah, I'm not asking you to choose. But I need my space back. If this is how things are going to be, I don't think I can keep doing this. I've been more than patient, but this has gone too far." The room was silent for a moment. Emily looked at me, then at Noah, before finally speaking. "Fine," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You want your space? I'll make sure Noah knows how to respect it. But don't think I'm going to stay in the background anymore." I stood my ground, refusing to back down. "I've had enough, Emily. You can stay, but things are going to change. And if you can't accept that, then you need to find somewhere else to live." The days that followed were a mix of tension and awkward silences. Noah and Emily tried their best to act like everything was normal, but I could feel the distance growing. The once comfortable atmosphere in the apartment was now clouded by resentment. Emily had made it clear that she didn't appreciate being told what to do, and Noah, though he had promised to respect my boundaries, seemed caught in the middle, unsure of where his loyalty should lie. I did my best to ignore the growing tension, focusing on work and my own life. But it was hard not to notice the little things that kept changing. The furniture was still rearranged. There were more of Emily's things scattered around, not just in the living room, but in the kitchen, the bathroom, and even my personal space. She had taken to leaving little notes everywhere. "Don't forget to take out the trash. Please keep the bathroom clean." And one that said, "No food in the living room." It was like living in someone else's house, not my own. I couldn't walk through my own apartment without feeling like I was intruding. One night, I came home late after a long day at work. The apartment was eerily quiet, but I could hear muffled voices coming from Noah's room. I walked down the hallway, and as I passed by, I heard Emily's voice, raised in frustration. "I just don't understand why she has to be so difficult," Emily said, her words sharp and cutting. "This was supposed to be a place for us, and now it's like I'm walking on eggshells." Noah's response was softer, but I could still hear the guilt in his voice. "I know, but you have to understand where she's coming from. She's been letting me stay here, and I get that it's not easy for her." "Then why don't you do something about it?" Emily snapped. "Why does she get to make the rules? Why does she get to control everything?" I stood there for a moment, listening, a wave of hurt flooding over me. This wasn't just about Emily being frustrated with me. This was about Noah, the brother I had always supported, choosing her over me, siding with her, even in my own home. I turned around and went straight to my room, closing the door quietly behind me. I felt the tears start to sting, but I fought them back. I wasn't going to let this break me. I couldn't. The next day, I came home early, hoping to catch them off guard. I was determined to end this once and for all. Noah was in the living room, watching TV, while Emily was in the kitchen. I walked in, my voice calm but firm. "Noah, we need to talk," I said. "About everything." He looked up, sensing the seriousness in my tone. "What's going on? This situation has gone on long enough. I'm not going to keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. You've let Emily take over my apartment. You've let her change everything. and I can't keep living like this. Emily appeared from the kitchen, crossing her arms. So what now? You want us to leave? Is that it? I took a deep breath. I'm not asking you to leave, Emily. But you need to understand that this is my home. If you want to continue living here, there are going to be some changes. I'm not backing down anymore. I want respect, and I want things to go back to the way they were. Emily's eyes narrowed. And if I don't agree? What then? Then you need to leave, I said, my voice steady. The tension in the room was palpable. Noah looked between the two of us, clearly torn. Is this what you want, Noah? I asked, looking directly at him. Do you want to keep living like this? He didn't answer right away, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted peace, but he had no idea how to get it. The silence in the room was thick, almost suffocating. I stood there, watching Noah as he avoided eye contact, his fingers tapping nervously on the couch. Emily's arms were still crossed, her face set in a tight expression that showed no sign of backing down. I knew I had to push harder. If I didn't, nothing would change. This had gone on for too long, and I couldn't keep letting Emily control everything in my own apartment. Are you really going to keep ignoring what's happening, Noah? I asked, my voice calm but edged with frustration. This is my home. You can't just let her take over like this. You have to choose. Either you respect me and the boundaries I've set, or you side with her. Noah's shoulders slumped. I could tell he was torn, but it was becoming clear that he wasn't willing to stand up to Emily. I don't want to choose between you two, he said quietly, his voice full of regret. I just want things to be normal again. But I don't know how to fix this. I could feel the weight of his words. He was caught in the middle, unsure of how to navigate this conflict. And honestly, I didn't know how to fix it either, but I couldn't let it keep going this way. I'm not asking you to choose between us, Noah, I said, my voice softer now. I'm asking you to choose to respect my space. I've been nothing but patient with you, but this has gone too far. Emily has taken over my apartment. She's changed the locks, made lists of rules, and I'm the one left trying to figure out where I stand. Noah looked up at me, his face filled with guilt. I didn't realize how much this was bothering you. I'm sorry, but Emily is not the issue, I interrupted. It's about boundaries, Noah. You're my brother, and I've always had your back. But this isn't right. I need to feel like I can live in my own space again. I don't want to kick her out, but I need her to understand that she can't control everything. Emily took a step forward, her face softening just slightly. I'm sorry, she said, though her tone was still defensive. I didn't realize how much I was overstepping. I guess I've been trying to make things work between us. I never meant to make you feel unwelcome. I looked at her, trying to see if there was any sincerity in her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, but I couldn't ignore the way she had acted until now. The way she had taken control so easily, without considering how it affected me. Noah, I need you to talk to her, I said, my eyes locking with his. Tell her that if she wants to live here, she has to respect my space and my boundaries. And if she can't do that, then she needs to find somewhere else to stay. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to you. Noah nodded slowly, his eyes finally meeting mine with a mixture of understanding and sadness. Okay, he said quietly. I'll talk to her. I promise. I didn't feel completely relieved, but it was a start. It wasn't over yet, but at least there was a glimmer of hope that things could change. The next few days were filled with uncertainty. Noah promised to talk to Emily, but every time I saw them together, it seemed like the conversation had never happened. The tension between the three of us remained thick, like an unspoken wall that neither side knew how to break. One evening, I came home to find Noah sitting alone in the living room. He looked exhausted, his face drawn and tired. Emily's absence didn't go unnoticed. For once, she wasn't hovering, dictating every little thing. I decided to take the opportunity to address what had been weighing on me for the past few days. Where's Emily? I asked, trying to sound casual, but I couldn't hide the hint of concern in my voice. She went out, Noah replied, rubbing his eyes. We talked. My heart skipped a beat. Anne, he sighed deeply, leaning back into the couch. It wasn't easy. She's upset, but I think she understands where you're coming from. We talked about the boundaries you set, and she agreed that things need to change. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. So, it's settled then? For now, yeah. Noah's voice was quiet, almost unsure. But she's not happy about it. I can tell. I nodded. I get that, but it had to be said. I can't keep living like this. Noah didn't respond immediately, his eyes looking distant, like he was still processing everything. After a few seconds, he turned to me, his gaze sincere. I know you're upset, and I know I've been avoiding this conversation for a while. But I also know you're right. I can't keep ignoring how this is affecting you. I never meant for any of this to hurt you. I could see the regret in his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe things could go back to normal. Maybe Noah and I could rebuild our relationship, even if it had been strained by this situation. Thank you for understanding, I said quietly, a small sense of relief starting to settle over me. I just want things to be fair again. I want to feel like I'm not being pushed out of my own home. Noah gave me a small, apologetic smile. I promise I won't let it get to that point again. The next few days were a bit calmer, though things weren't perfect. Emily, while still a little tense, seemed to be making an effort to respect the boundaries I had set. She no longer left passive-aggressive notes around the apartment, and she stopped rearranging everything. I could tell she was trying, but I wasn't sure if it was out of genuine desire to make things work or because she didn't want to push Noah too far. Noah was more involved in the apartment now. He made sure to spend more time at home with me, trying to restore some balance in our relationship. It wasn't easy, and the road ahead still felt uncertain, but it was better than the tension-filled days we'd had before. But as much as things seemed to be improving, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily wasn't quite done with her plans. Her silence, though not as sharp as before, still felt like a ticking time bomb. She was biding her time, waiting for an opportunity to make her next move. And I was preparing for it, just in case. Weeks passed, and the apartment felt slightly more peaceful. Emily had eased off on the passive-aggressive behavior, and Noah seemed to be trying his best to balance things out. The awkwardness between us had lessened, though I still couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. One evening, I came home to find Emily sitting at the kitchen table, her phone in hand. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment, there was an uncomfortable silence. "Hey," I said cautiously, trying to gauge her mood. "Hey," she replied, her tone neutral. "I was just thinking about something." I didn't respond immediately. I knew there was always something lurking beneath the surface when it came to Emily. She was too calculating to just sit in silence unless she had something to say. Finally, after what felt like a long pause, she spoke again. I've been thinking about what you said," she started, her eyes locking with mine. "About boundaries and space." I tensed slightly. "Anne, I understand now that I've been overstepping. But it's hard, This is Noah's apartment, and he's not exactly the best at taking charge." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "I've been clear with him about what I need. We've been over this." Emily set her phone down and leaned forward, her voice becoming more serious. "Here's the thing, though. I've been living here for a while now, and I'm not just going to fade into the background. I'm not going to be some guest who doesn't have a say in anything." I stared at her, trying to process her words. "No one's asking you to fade into the background, Emily. We've already discussed that. But you can't take over everything. You don't get to change the rules just because you're with Noah." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "I'm not asking for control. I'm just asking for a little more consideration. I want to be a part of this too, not just Noah's girlfriend who's constantly being told she doesn't belong." I could see where she was coming from, but I still wasn't convinced that this conversation wasn't just another attempt at manipulation. "You are part of this, but you need to respect the fact that this is my home," I said firmly. "If you want to live here, you need to accept the rules we agreed on. Nothing more, nothing less." Emily's gaze darkened for a moment, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "Of course, I can do that." But something in her tone didn't sit right with me. There was an edge to it, a subtle hint of resentment that I hadn't noticed before. It was as if she was biding her time, waiting for another opportunity to make her move. Later that evening, I overheard Noah and Emily talking in the living room. I couldn't make out all the words, but I caught enough to realize that Emily wasn't as willing to let go of control as she claimed. "She thinks everything is just going to go back to normal, but it's not that easy, Noah," Emily was saying, her voice low but insistent. "I can't just be the quiet one anymore. I have a life here too." Noah's voice responded, tired but understanding. "I know, Em. I've been trying to find a balance, but it's not easy for anyone." I stood there, heart sinking as I listened. Emily wasn't giving up. She was just playing the long game, pretending to back off while she quietly plotted her next move. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't trust her. No matter how hard I tried, she would never truly accept the boundaries I had set. She was biding her time, waiting for Noah to let his guard down, and when he did, I was sure she'd take the opportunity to push even harder. I wasn't going to let that happen. It was clear now that if I wanted things to truly change, I would have to make a move of my own that I couldn't ignore the gut feeling anymore. Everything had been building up to this point. The subtle digs, the passive-aggressive behavior, and Emily's underhanded comments. I had let her believe that things were going to stay the same, but I had made a mistake. It wasn't just her who needed to respect boundaries. I needed to stop letting her push me around. That night, after overhearing their conversation, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Emily was waiting for Noah to crack, and I couldn't let him be her excuse anymore. I needed to take control of my own space, once and for all. I waited until the next morning, when Noah left for work, to make my move. Emily was in the kitchen, making her usual breakfast, seemingly unaware that I had heard everything the night before. I walked into the kitchen, standing tall with a calm but firm expression. Emily glanced up, offering a small, unconvincing smile. "Morning," she said, though I could tell she was trying to gauge my mood. "Morning," I replied, my voice steady. "We need to talk." Her smile faltered, and she set down the spatula, crossing her arms. "About what?" "About this situation," I said, gesturing around the apartment. "I'm done playing nice. You've crossed a line, and I've let it go for too long. But it's over now." Emily's expression hardened. "What are you talking about?" "All the little games you've been playing, moving the furniture around, making lists of rules, changing the locks. I've tolerated it, but I'm done." I took a step forward, my voice unwavering. "I've asked Noah to respect my space. I've made it clear that this is my home, but you're still acting like it's yours. And that's not going to happen." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond right away. I could see the challenge in her gaze, but I wasn't backing down. I understand that you want to feel at home here, but I don't want to keep feeling like I'm being pushed out of my own life, I continued. You can either accept the boundaries I've set, or you need to find somewhere else to stay. Emily stood frozen for a moment, and I thought for a brief second that she might explode with anger. But instead, she took a deep breath and straightened up. I don't like being told what to do, she said, her tone still defensive. But maybe you're right. Maybe I've been too pushy. It wasn't the apology I was hoping for, but it was a start. Emily seemed to realize that I wasn't going to back down, and I could see the calculation in her eyes. She wasn't going to give up without a fight, but at least now she knew I wasn't afraid to stand up to her. I want to make it clear that I'm not asking you to leave, but you need to respect my home and my rules, I said, my voice firm. No more lists. No more changing the locks. No more moving my things without permission. Emily gave me a stiff nod, her lips pressed together in a tight line. Fine. I'll respect the rules, she said through gritted teeth. But this isn't over. You'll see. I wasn't sure what she meant by that, but I knew I had made my point. I wasn't going to let her have the upper hand anymore. The rest of the day passed in a tense quiet. Emily didn't speak to me much, and Noah wasn't home to witness the conversation. I could only imagine how the dynamic between us would shift after this, but I felt a strange sense of relief. It was no longer just about Noah or Emily. It was about me reclaiming my space and my life. As I sat in the living room that evening, I couldn't help but feel a little proud of myself. I had taken control. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my own brother or his girlfriend, take away my sense of home. But deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over. Emily wasn't going to give up that easily, and I couldn't be certain that Noah would always back me up when things got tough. This was only the beginning. The days that followed were quieter. Emily kept her distance, and Noah was, for once, more aware of the tension in the air. But I knew this peace was only temporary. The storm that had been brewing for weeks hadn't fully passed. It was only a matter of time before Emily would make another move, and I needed to be prepared. It wasn't long before I found out I was right. A few days after my confrontation with Emily, Noah came to me, his face serious and filled with concern. I talked to Emily last night, he said, his voice almost apologetic. She's upset. She doesn't understand why you're being so harsh with her. She feels like you're pushing her out of your life. I could feel the frustration rising in my chest, but I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. I'm not pushing her out, Noah. I'm simply asking for respect in my own home. There's a difference. I know, he said, his eyes downcast. But I just want things to be normal again. Can't we just try to work this out without all the drama? I stared at him for a long moment, the weight of his words settling in. He didn't get it. He still didn't fully understand why this was such a big deal to me. I wasn't just asking for some small concession. This was about my space, my privacy, and my boundaries. I've been trying to work this out, Noah, I said quietly. But Emily has crossed every line I've set. You weren't here when she changed the locks, when she made lists of things she wanted changed, when she made me feel like I didn't belong in my own apartment. That's not something I can just forget. Noah sighed heavily. I know. I've seen it too. But I don't know what to do. She's not going to back down, and I don't want to lose her. I'm stuck, and I don't want to be stuck between you two. I stood there, my heart heavy with disappointment. I had hoped that Noah would be the one to help set things right, but it seemed like he was still too emotionally tangled in his relationship with Emily to see things clearly. I'm not asking you to choose, Noah, I said firmly. I'm asking you to respect me and my boundaries. If she can't do that, then we need to figure something out. But I'm not going to keep living like this. The silence between us stretched on. Finally, Noah nodded. I get it. I'll talk to her again. But I don't know if it'll change anything. A part of me wanted to scream, to tell him that it had already gone too far. But I knew that pushing him too hard would only push him away. He had to come to this conclusion on his own. The following days were tense, but there was no confrontation. Emily seemed to retreat into her own world, and Noah continued to spend more time at work, avoiding any serious discussions. But one afternoon, as I returned home, I noticed something different. The apartment felt quieter, less oppressive. I walked in, and there, on the kitchen table, was a small note from Emily. I'm sorry for the way I've acted. I'll do my best to respect your space and your rules. I just want to make things work, but I understand if you can't forgive me. I'm leaving the keys to the apartment on the table. I won't change the locks anymore. My heart clenched as I read the note. Emily was finally acknowledging what had happened, and for the first time, it felt like maybe we were heading toward some resolution. Later that evening, Noah came to me, a conflicted look on his face. I talked to her, he said. She's leaving. She's going to stay with a friend for a while to give you space. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me felt relief, but there was still a lingering sadness. Things would never be the same, and no matter how much Noah and I tried to repair our relationship, I wasn't sure if it could ever fully go back to what it was. I think this is for the best, I said quietly. But we need to have a serious conversation about how we move forward, Noah. This situation can't happen again. He nodded, his face filled with regret. I know, and I'll make sure it doesn't. In the days that followed, Emily did move out, and while the apartment felt emptier without her presence, it also felt more peaceful. Noah and I were finally able to have some honest conversations about what had happened. It wasn't easy, and we still had a long road ahead to rebuild our relationship, but for the first time in months, I felt like I had my space back. Things weren't perfect, but they were better. And that was enough for me.